This is Journeys. We're doing Caring for Our Bodies today. Again, this is the fourth in our 5-part series, our Journeys meeting series. We've already covered staying connected to our communities, grieving our normal routines, growing with our families in difficult times, and now we're doing caring for our bodies. Next week is the last Journeys meeting, and that is for nurturing friendships moving forward. Here's the obligatory who I am slide. For those of you who get the slides later, I want to make sure that all of them have it in case somebody has questions or want to get a hold of me. But for those of you that might be here for the first time or are watching the replay for the first time, I am Beverly Griffer. I am a clinical PhD in clinical psychology. I am multi-concentrated and got a lot of stuff on there that says that I know stuff, but I don't know, y'all can be the judge of that. I have a lot of background in the legal field. I'm a practicing attorney. I have a business background, and I started my educational journey in psychology doing experimental and behavioral work. Currently, I am working with Arbor Mountain Therapy and Assessment. I am doing work at my law practice still in some capacity, and I am teaching as a graduate instructor at Concordia University. So I'm a little bit busy, but I love this stuff. So I really thank you so much for letting me come and share with you as well. Next, COVID-19 and our body's stress system. So as you know, when we start these out, the first thing I usually put up here is sort of the fun facts that we get to work with as we're moving forward. This week, our fun facts look at what our system does and how our system handles stress. So the human stress response system is called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And it's up here. The hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands are all sort of inside the meaty part of your brain. And if you're trying to get to them, you'd probably go in the back. They're part of our old school our old school central nervous system. They are our less evolved portions of our brain. They're not like our sort of front matter that you would think of as that sort of cortex material. This is really sort of the meat and potatoes. It is more primitive, and it has evolved over hundreds of millions of years from our ancestors to where we are now. And its job is to respond to immediate danger. It is an efficient system, and it's necessary for survival. The problem is that this system in many people has been active at this point for months. And as of, I believe today, at least we're over a year now, depending on where you count from. And the end of this process that we're going through in terms of vaccination and safety and workplaces and things sort of returning to what we is more close to what we expect. We don't know when that's going to happen or what that will look like if it does. So we don't have an identified end goal that we're going to reach or that we're trying to work towards, and we have no idea when we might get there. And what that does is it incurs a state of chronic bodily stress that sends our HPA axis into overdrive, and that gives us effects throughout our entire body. And then once that happens, those effects themselves can be stressful for us. So it's a vicious circle, right? So if your body is stressed and it's making symptoms, and those symptoms are also stressful, now it's worse. So this is the stress system that our body deals with regularly. And when it works for what it's supposed to do, it's fantastic. But there are challenges when you're facing something like a long-term stressor. So how is the system supposed to work? So when I was on internship, I had a very wise doctor tell me a story about a saber-toothed tiger. And you imagine you wake up in the morning, right? You're a cave person. You wake up in the morning as a cave person and you roll the rock to your cave over and you look outside. It's only open up this much because rolling a rock is hard, right? And you're the only one awake. So you're pushing the rock. It's about this far open. You stick out your head. You're trying to see what's going on. And out there is this nasty, nasty saber-toothed tiger. Yeah, I have opinions on this already coming in through the chat. Yes, coming in. What do we do? What do we feel in those moments? We feel sometimes paralyzed. We're scared, right? And what are we scared about, right? The very real possibility that this saber-toothed tiger is gonna jump at you and eat you for breakfast. And you're defenseless, and you're outside in your cave in like your wolf skins. And what are you gonna do? That is what our body goes through. That system turns on. Our adrenaline starts to move. And this all happens because our body is going into that fight, flight, or freeze, right? So if you're going to fight, you need your muscles to be hyped and pumped with energy, and they need to have a lot of ability to move and strike because you're going to have to fight a tiger. And that's scary. Saber-toothed tigers are not funny. They got big old teeth. They come at you. They're bigger than you are, and you're going to need to repel an attack and fight back. Or you could run, right? You could retreat into the cave and try to push the rock back as soon as possible and hope that you can do it before there's a stalking tiger that's coming in after you. Or if you can't get back into the cave, what if you stepped out of the cave to like get some water and then boom, tiger? You're going to run. You're going to run away from the tiger. How fast can you do that? We got to keep all of the big muscle groups moving because those legs are going to have to be hauling to get you away from this tiger. Or maybe you need to freeze. Maybe the tiger hasn't seen you. Maybe if you don't move, it won't notice that you're there and it will walk by. But if you breathe too heavy, or if you make too many movements, it's going to catch you. It's going to see you out of the corner of its eye, and then it's going to turn. So you're freezing. Fight, flight, freeze. All of these things generate biophysiological side effects and consequences for our bodies. Some of them are super easy to understand. Some of them are more challenging. Rapid heartbeat, right? You probably have this experience of sort of any general anxiety. These days, the great place that I always think of is if you've ever almost been in a car accident, that's what we're talking about. Right? When the world slows down for a second and your chest leaps up and your body seizes, right? In the real world, when you're really responding to something, that's what we're talking about here. That kind of response. That's how it works naturally and correctly, right? It goes, and then the car accident passes and it doesn't happen and you like huff and calm down and it takes a few minutes and you got to get home, but like eventually it passes you by and you go, whew, I'm so glad that that's over, right? Same thing with the tiger, right? Once you get to safety, you go, oh man, so glad that that's over. So glad that that's over. It doesn't work so much here because as we talked in the previous slide, it's not over. And we don't know when it's going to be over. So while we might not have had the intensity of rush or startle or scare that one might have if faced with a tiger or a near collision, it's there. The feeling is there, the response is there, but it's lower. right? It's not as dramatic. It's not as easy to see. It's not as simple to pick out and say, oh yeah, this is because of that car accident. And then we don't know when it's safe. So our body doesn't know when to turn it off. And when it's going for an elongated period of time, rapid heartbeat, right? Pumping right out of our chest. High blood pressure, same thing, right? That muscle is pumping so hard because it's trying to make sure your body is oxygenated for the fight to come or for the run to come, or so that you can keep control of all of your limbs and not move, right? It's trying to keep you going, but it's exhausting itself. So you have a rapid heart rate, your blood pressure is high, you have anxiety, right? Over an extended period of time, we interpret a lot of these feelings as anxiety, nervousness, worry, because we don't know what might happen next. We also experience weight loss. Now, there are some people who have said, well, no, when you're really stressed, you comfort eat, and so you gain weight. Okay, so if you are stressed, there are certainly, I'll give you some people that will comfort eat. I'm not going to argue that. But the literature actually shows us that in the long term, weight loss happens in extended stressful situations if we're not watching for it, particularly in short-term ones, but it can happen in long-term ones as well. And that's because when we have this level of stress, our body is not digesting. So in the short term, you lose appetite, right? Your body says, well, if a tiger's going to eat me, I guess I don't need to digest my breakfast. I got to probably run first because if I'm dead, it's not going to matter. So it doesn't do any of that. All of your non-primary functions sort of shut down. So in the immediate short term and at the beginning of this period, we actually see weight loss rather than weight gain. We tend to see weight gain because your body is not actually absorbing nutrients the way that it should when we're healthy, right? So not only is digestion not working appropriately, but if you've gotten to a place where you're starting to see weight gain, it's likely because your body is really out of sync and it's not taking in what it would normally take in from the nutrients that you're getting. Excessive sweating, right? Your body is popped with so much adrenaline and it's dealing with so much stress and your muscles are so tense that it's generating heat. Your body is generating too much heat to try and keep active at that level. Muscle fatigue for the same reason, right? If your muscles are tensed, ready to figure out what's going on, even if only a little bit, that happens in the long term. It actually increases your body heat and it causes you to get clammy and sweaty. We also have muscle fatigue, of course, same reason, clammy, sweaty, muscles ache, they've been busy. Feelings of loss of breath, right? It's that feeling where you think you're taking a big enough breath, but you never feel like you have enough air, right? Some of that is because the style in which we breathe is different when we're stressed. When we are feeling like we're in danger, we tend to take slow, faster, shallow breaths. So we're breathing from up here instead of all the way through our diaphragm as our body is used to doing when it's trying to relax. We'll come back to that later. The other thing that we tend to see in this sort of intense period of stress with our bodies is heart palpitations, right? This is when our heart is pumping quickly and it's doing what it's supposed to do to try and keep you safe, but we're tiring it out. So sometimes we see things that are offbeat or off rhythm or not properly functioning. Right? And those things, of course, left unmonitored and untreated can also be very scary. So those are your biophysiological symptoms. Those are things that your body actually does to itself to try to support the stress that it thinks that you're in. But on top of that, there are a lot of somatic symptoms that come along. So I think it was last week, and I know for sure we talked about it, I think the week before too, when people are stressed, sometimes those symptoms of stress come out in other places, right? There's nothing physically wrong, but now you have a headache. In our example, it was stomach aches, right? A good example of this that a lot of people are familiar with is if you have a little child who says that they have stomach aches every morning, right? They don't want to go to school. Does that make sense? And that's the example. So those are our somatic symptoms, and the somatic symptoms aren't completely limited. You can have any kind of somatic symptom. Whatever it is that shows up is possible, right? So some people have headaches and stomach aches. Some people have somatic body aches, right? There's nothing particularly wrong with that area of their body beyond anything else, but there is a body ache there. And those are the kinds of things that we want to keep in mind. It's not that the body system is doing those things, but the body system is putting you in a state that you are feeling more things than are there. And it's not to say that they aren't real. They are real. It's just that they aren't caused by something biological. They're caused by something else, typically something that we see as emotional. And in addition, there are a lot of other aspects of physical health that are made more difficult in this state. So sleep becomes more difficult. In addition to sleep, we have challenges with immune systems. We have challenges with just being able to eat generally. We have aches and pains. We have joint disturbances, right? So if we are unable to feel comfortable while we're moving around, we tend to do less moving around, which in and of itself is also a challenge, especially because there are a lot of things that we can do to help alleviate some of these concerns. And some of them involve things that, are challenging to do when you're in the midst of this. And that's really the next thing to look at. What can we do to counter effects of these long-term exposures to stress? What can we do? So there are a number of things, and many of them are listed here. There are more than are listed here, but this is what I have so far that I thought we would be able to get through today. So the first thing is relaxation. So relaxation response and the stress response are opposites. In your brain, there are two systems that work together and balance each other out. So as your stress response goes up, when it's time for it to come back down, this relaxation response comes up. And they should, on average, stay together. But as one spikes, the other comes to correct. That's how they sort of sit at equilibrium generally. But when we have chronic stress, we often have to kickstart the relaxation system to shut off this loop that's happening in our brains. So some of the things that people do in order to sort of engage this system of the brain are listed here. So diaphragmatic breathing is one of those. There are other people who think that different kinds of focused breathing are really helpful here. Any kind of really deep breathing is helpful. I prefer the diaphragmatic breathing because it is a special kind of deep breathing that we also do, for example, when we're sleeping. So it is sort of in the belly area where you inhale and your lungs stay still and you inhale all the way down into your belly. Anybody who has done instruments or has sang chorus or is done some sporting perhaps will be familiar with sort of that kind of breathing. And the notion here is that in order to do that, one, it naturally triggers that in the brain, but this happens because we can't do this in threatened positions, right? You can't be running from a tiger and breathe in this way. It doesn't make sense. So you're signaling safety to your body, even if your body's not really sure that it's safe. That's what you're doing. You're signaling safety by breathing in this manner. In addition, if you want to look at anyone snoring on a couch, this is how they're sleeping too. You're going to see that breathing happening in the belly. And now that we're talking about it, you will probably also notice it in yourself. Right before you fall asleep or right after you wake up, you're going to notice that your breathing is in the belly. So I always tell people when you're doing diaphragmatic breathing, and this isn't, a super lesson. If you want to learn how to do that, give me a call. We'll figure it out. But diaphragmatic breathing operates in through the nose, breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth like you're blowing a candle. What you're doing is you're preventing gasping, and you're preventing doing it in a rushed manner. So if you breathe in from the mouth, you get which is not calming, right? Even if you're upset and you're breathing in through your nose, you cannot gasp in like that. And when you're exhaling, you want to exhale with that resistance from your mouth, specifically so that the exhale doesn't just go and then be over, because that's actually not fully expelling the air from your lungs and your diaphragm. So we blow with resistance, and that helps us empty out more of that gas that's in our lungs, and it allows us to be able to take in a renewed breath the next time. The next thing is guided imagery. This is another relaxation technique that people use. Guided imagery is, it's almost like listening, it's actually exactly like listening to a story, but a little bit more. If this is something that you're interested, I'm happy to try and share some resources if need be. You can look online, or where, I don't know if you watch podcasts, or you can look it up specifically. This is somebody that reads to you or speaks to you a story as though you're there in the experience, and they describe the things that you're feeling and the things that you can see and the things that you're hearing, the things that you're feeling like on your skin. And you close your eyes and you imagine what that is and what that experience is like, and connect to that story in an attempt to sort of just separate and focus on something else that's more relaxing. Progressive muscle relaxation is very similar. Many people do this with a voice that they're listening to that's giving instruction. And you can find this online, no problem whatsoever. And this is an area where you go from sort of the top of the head to the bottom of the toes, and you tense each muscle group, and then you release the tension on that muscle group. And what that does, first of all, is it works any extra juice that might be in those muscle groups, and it releases it. In addition, it allows you to relax the muscle more than you can without that kind of attention. So many times people tell me, oh, I didn't even know that I was carrying that kind of tension in my shoulders until I did this particular muscle relaxation activity, and I tensed up my shoulders all the way. Or sometimes they do them this way, I tensed up my shoulders all the way like this, and then I let it go and went, oh wow, that's much less tense. I had no idea I had that kind of tension in my shoulders at all. And that helps us reduce that distress. The last one that I hear, and is generally in this category of things that people feel is relaxing, is repetitive prayer. And this isn't necessarily prayer in the way that you might think of it, although that does work for people that are involved in a spiritual life. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is chanting monks. This is people that are doing particular long or repetitive prayer, like, Hail Marys. I'm gonna do 100 Hail Marys today until I feel better. Somebody that's doing a rosary prayer. Somebody that is taking time to pray, a multi-day prayer, like a novena that you pray at the same time every day. Or someone that is listening to someone else that's doing such a thing. And sometimes that's, an actual experience with like someone who's doing something live. And other times it works much more like guided imagery, where someone has recorded a prayer or prayer sequence that you're listening to, that you can focus your attention on. And people who report that they have high levels of spirituality do tend to report enjoying the repetitive prayer aspect of relaxation and tend to choose that one. Now, not only that one, but there are certainly reasons why some people might prefer it. So that's relaxation. That's first. Good nutrition is next. So good nutrition is really important. Good nutrition is important because, one, we don't want to eat sometimes, and other times we really want to eat. So we want to maintain consistency for our bodies. One of the things that our bodies relies on is our consistency. And if we feed it really good one time and then completely forget to do it in the same way another time, it gets confused. It's not sure what kind of nutrition it's going to receive. It doesn't know how many calories it has. It doesn't know how active it is. And it either tries to burn all the energy because it's concerned that you have some activity that it needs to support you in doing, or it starts to shut down thinking that it needs to conserve its power. So one of the really good ways to maintain a healthful body is to make sure that you're maintaining your nutrition intake. Now, for some people, that'll mean looking at supplements because you can't do the same things you used to do, or you have a vitamin A deficiency, or whatever it is. But those are things that you probably already know about yourself, or your doctor can talk you through if you're concerned that nutrition is an area that you need to focus. You're welcome to talk to your doctor about those things. There are dietitians and nutritionists out there that you can certainly speak to. But the other big thing is that stressors and bodily stressors deteriorate our immune systems. They make it more difficult for our bodies to fight off infections and viruses and all kinds of other things. And it makes it difficult for our immune system to reproduce the cells that are necessary to keep us functional. Now, our immune system doesn't just fight off, foreign bacterias and viruses. It's not just there to keep us from getting COVID. It also helps flush out your entire system. So if your immune system isn't functioning well because it doesn't have the nutrition that it needs, or it doesn't have some other thing that it needs, then one of the challenges that you run into is that we start to see fatigue, right? Because our immune system isn't functioning properly. Or we start to have aches and pains in areas that normally our immune system regulates. So if you see those things and you're not able to manage, do make sure that you see someone to make sure that if you need some supplements or some help getting through that process, you do seek that out and get it. Exercise, right? Next thing that we can do. Exercise uses up the adrenaline that's in our systems, right? So if we're stressed and our body is ramping up to fight a tiger, even if it's maybe a little tiger, or even if it's only ramping up a little bit, exercise will get that out of the system. So whether that's running, doing yoga, cardio, weight training. My mother used to do Campbell soup weight training when she was doing her, she did rehab for a little while, and they gave her Campbell's tomato soup cans that she was going to town with because she needed to get some exercise and wasn't quite ready yet. But all of those things can help move our bodies, maintain activity. And what we're trying to do, of course, is use up that energy and maintain as much of a healthful and consistent lifestyle as we can. So exercise, always a plus. And you know what? If you can't be running, walking works. If you don't do yoga, right? There are other things. Well, Pilates is supposed to be easier than yoga. I don't know. I don't do either one, but I have people tell me I don't do yoga. I do Pilates. It's easier. I have no idea. So don't take my word on it. Maybe it's not. Cardio comes in all shapes and sizes, and it's whatever is good for you. And again, weights or anything from, just moving your arms with some tomato soup cans to going out and becoming a power lifter. Don't go out and become a power lifter unless it's safe and you're appropriately skilled and trained. Don't tell them that Dr. Griffer told you to go out and become a power lifter and that's what happened. Plan for that if that's what you want to do, and let your doctor tell you you're healthy enough to do it. But you could, in theory, do that. The next thing we want to look at is mindfulness. So people are usually familiar with this one. They don't always call it the same thing. So if you know of something else that you call this, feel free, let me know. But mindfulness is when we take time to focus on what's really happening right now. And that smelling smells and tasting tastes and feeling textures and recognizing what's going on in the world around us at the moment. One of the things that does is it reduces stress levels, but it also connects us to what's happening in our lives right now. And there are some really, really important, there's some really, really important stress-related changes that happen when we do that. Particularly, we're talking about blood pressure reduction. We're talking about breathing tending to be more regulated, falling back in the realm of normal. In fact, this is one of the things, many of the relaxation techniques are helpful, but there are some mindfulness techniques that people use as responses to even things like panic attacks, right? So there's a combination of relaxation and mindfulness that even fight those kinds of acute stressors. So if it can handle and help walk people through some really intense acute times, then it can help us with some of these long-term stressors if we're doing it consistently. Now, that doesn't mean we have to do it 8 hours every day. It means that we could take some time, maybe each day, and take a few minutes and practice some mindfulness, just so that we can get used to what that is, and we can feel it, and we can recognize when it's time to draw our attention to the present and really connect with what's around us. The next thing is sleep. Sleep hygiene is huge. People's sleep is highly deregulated right now. We have people that are on different work schedules. We have people that aren't on work schedules yet because their work schedule means we're still closed. There are programs that are shut down that people don't go to anymore, and nobody's working at them right now. There are worries that come up for people that interfere with sleep. There are just different routines that exist right now in our lives than did a year and a half ago. And sometimes just those changes in routines make a difference, right? Whether it's watching children or grandchildren or jobs or whatever it might be. Our schedules are just different right now in many cases, and many people are experiencing sleep disturbance as a result because our body works in rhythms. So our body is expecting to do one thing, but it's not happening. And we don't even know what it's expecting to do sometimes when we get it off track. So maybe we think it is supposed to have us going to sleep at 9:30 every night. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're not sure why it isn't doing it. It used to. I don't know either. But one of the things that's really helpful is to try to improve our sleep hygiene. That means keeping the same routine each night. That means trying to make sure that our electronic devices are turned off an hour ahead of time. If you're one of those people that needs to have a TV or noise or something like that that's on at night, you'll make sure that you are doing night vision and filters and all of those things, because the light, the natural light that comes off of televisions actually triggers our brains to stay awake. So it's very difficult for some people to sleep with those things on. And even if you don't think you're one of those people, you probably could be. You never know. I don't recommend a sleep study just for that, but you might find out that it is actually bothering you, even though you're used to it by now. You could be getting better sleep. That's what I'm here for. So in addition to those things, the other thing that you want to do is make sure that you're going to sleep within about an hour of the same time every night. So if 9 o'clock or 9:30, I think I said, if 9:30 is normal bedtime, then don't go to bed any sooner than 8:30 or any later than 10:30. And it takes about 30 days of staying on the same sleep routine for your body's rhythm to reset and really be in that groove so that you can deviate a little. All right, one of my favorites is journaling, right? Countering effects of long-term stress, journaling. So one of the things that people get very focused on in general, and I use people very generally here too, because it's certainly not everybody, but I see many that get very focused on the things that are not going correctly, right? And we write a journal and we write in our journal, "Dear diary, today sucked. I'm still not able to, go to this program, and my work schedule is awful because they're rotating how many people are allowed in the office at once. And I can't do this, or I didn't do that, or now the plants that I want to buy for my garden cost $500 because somehow plants got expensive because things are weird out there, man. There are people out there making thousands of dollars on plants. This whole thing is strange." And then the journal entry goes into that kind of spiral, right? And you have this whole journal that you read back later and go, wow, everything is awful. Everything is terrible. Look at all the bad things that are written in here. Okay. Maybe those things are bad and maybe those things are terrible. I'm not going to pass judgment on that. But when we're journaling, if we're going to write down that there are things that are challenging, okay. We also, though, want to write down our successes every day and our gratitudes, right? What was a success today? Right? And if your success today was simply making it through the day and getting to fill in your journal, great. Maybe your success today was that, you cooked a meal. Maybe your success today was that you put on pants when you went out to your mailbox. Awesome. Good for you. Put your success down in there. Nobody says that it has to be a big success, and nobody says who gets to judge how big a success is. Put whatever you want. If it feels like a success to you, then it's a success. And if you have trouble thinking of one, ask someone. There is someone probably in your life that will come up with one for you. And you know what? If they don't, your biggest success is asking for support and looking for your successes. Because that's hard to do too. You reached out to another human today. Your success is you talked to your sister, brother, niece, cousins, uncles, former roommate. Good for you. You did that today. Also, gratitudes. Right? What things are you thankful for today? What things are out there in the world that are good? What things are you looking forward to? What things are you glad exist? Right? And if that means, man, I am really grateful that Marie Claire makes Swedish meatballs because I needed that today, score. Put that in as a gratitude. Now, if your gratitude is, I am really glad that the dog didn't pee on the floor today, cool. That works too. But sometimes our gratitudes are different. Sometimes our gratitudes are, I'm really glad I got all the laundry done and I feel really good about it. Or I'm really thankful that we had a income tax refund coming to us because we could use it. I'm grateful for that. You know, I'm grateful that my child has done this accomplishment or whatever it might be. But this way, when you look back, as we all do, and read the journals from before, it's not all doom and gloom because that's a poor representation of what your experience during this has been. It's a poor representation. It hasn't been all doom and gloom. It's just that those are the things that stand out for many people. We want to make the other things stand out too, decreasing our stress about all of those things that we don't feel went as well. It allows us to highlight those things that we do appreciate and we are thankful for and we were successful in. Finally, set boundaries and enforce them when necessary. This means if you're having a terrible day, no, you are not going to babysit. Nope, not today. This means that no one is coming over to your house. This means that you don't feel like going to the grocery store and no one can make you. This means you're having a really bad day and you're not going to work today because you don't feel well and they can't guilt you into going. Right? This is, no, I really can't take on another project right now. I know everyone wants me to do projects, right? This is when someone calls and says, hey, do you want to do a family group quilt? And you go, oh my gosh, no, why did she say that? Right? And you can say, no, this does not sound like a thing that I have time to do or I want to do. Sorry. And that's okay. One of the things that we see is that stress goes up as people have too many responsibilities and have allowed those boundaries to shrink. Now, I'm not telling you to be obnoxious to your family and friends. I'm telling you to be kind to yourself. Right? When you are going through experiences and you are trying to regulate sleep or nutrition or exercise, and people look to you and say, you don't have to do that today. Why don't you come and do something different? You can set that boundary and say, you know what? No, I'm trying to eat well, or no, I have to do my walk today and that's really important for me. Or, you know what? No, that's a little bit later than I'd like to be up tonight. I'm really trying to work on that because it hasn't been going very well. You know, no. And that's okay. That's okay. And I encourage you all to do that. So there are a few goals that are tied to this, and I just want to make sure we're wrapped up with really what those are. First, we're trying to reduce the total amount of time that your body is under stress. Now, that's not to say that we can make this pandemic situation end any sooner, but we're trying to take pockets of our life and calm them, right? We don't want to be on yellow alert all the time. We want to be able to get back down to green every once in a while. And some of the things that we've talked about in the last 45 minutes are things that help us sort of bring ourselves closer to that green place so that our body's not dealing with the stress that it naturally takes when we are more heightened. Next, we want to relieve symptoms that are associated with discomfort, right? Digestion is a problem. We want to be careful about what we're eating and regulate what we're eating in an intelligent way. Otherwise, we're going to make ourselves more sick, right? And that's not helpful. If our muscles are hurting, we need to either get the energy, it's actually lactic acid buildup that naturally your muscles flush out when you move them. So we either need to get the muscles moving to sort of flush out the chemicals that are in our bodies that are causing that aching and that difficulty, or we need to cause the muscle to relax so that it can let it go, right? So those are symptoms of discomfort that we're trying to address. We want to maintain appropriate nutrition to support health. And because if you're not managing with nutrition, then all of these other things become difficult because your immune system is weakened. Weight tends to be a problem. It throws off all of our hormones and it causes major digestion problems. And that actually leads to difficulty sleeping. So nutrition is very, very important. And again, if nutrition is an area of concern that you have, there are lots of resources for you to go seek what kind of support would be best for you. In addition, we want to maintain healthy lifestyle habits. Those are exercising, those are being engaged in some kind of a routine for sleep. They are doing things that allow us to set some boundaries around what we're looking for and what we want to do and what's best for us in our own lives. Many of us are perfectly capable of doing all those things independently. But when we're in a situation where we have this kind of stress and our life situation has been different for a little while, sometimes at this point we're going, I want everything to be okay. I'm going to pretend that it's all right. I'm going to keep on going. It'll be okay eventually. And that's fair. But I'm worried about taking care of you, right? And I want your priority to be taking care of you. And I want other people's priorities to be taking care of them. I want us to make sure that we're focusing on ourselves because we have to put on our mask before we assist the passenger sitting next to us. Right? This is exactly the situation that we're in. We can't help the people around us if we aren't holding ourselves together. We can try, but it doesn't work as well. I'm betting there are people out there that have tried very hard where their entire world was crumbling to help hold other people up. You can do it, but only for so long. And it really sucks and it really hurts. And when you're all done, you end up being the sniveling pile on the floor. And sometimes people aren't there to help you. So take care of yourself. Take care of yourself first. Make sure you are in a good place. And then you can support the people around you more effectively. Finally, support. Seek medical support. If you need it, you want it, from clinicians, from therapists, from doctors. If you want to go talk to your pastor, seek support from anywhere if you need it or want it. If you feel as though the symptoms that you're experiencing are beyond stress symptoms or are different than some things that you would expect, please do get in touch with your doctor. If you feel like the distress and the nervousness or worry that these symptoms are bringing to you is a problem, please reach out. Go talk to a therapist. That's what we're for. This is what we do. If you feel like you don't have a really good routine and you don't know how to work your spirituality into this, go talk to your pastor. Go talk to your priest or your deacon. Go talk to your rabbi. Sit down with them and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life, and I don't feel this connection that I want to have. Right? Those are all positive things to do. They are proactive, they are positive, and ultimately, as long as you are taking steps to better yourself and make sure you are safe, you're going to be improving your situation overall. So please do reach out to any kind of specialized support if you feel like that would be really beneficial for you, or if you're just curious to see what that's like. We've rolled up here near the end. We have a couple of minutes to go. So if there are any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas that people wanted to go ahead and put in the chat, you're welcome to do that. If I don't see anything in a moment or two, we will scoot along. But again, I really appreciate you being here and being willing to sit down and walk this journey together. I really appreciated hearing that these are the kinds of ideas that people were looking for some support with, and I'm really enjoying the opportunity to interact. Thank you. Through this chat functionality, and I really appreciate that people are posting it. I'm getting thank yous and great ideas. I appreciate hearing that. Go out, pick some that you like, use them. I love a lot of these. A fantastic opportunity to sort of get a chance to have some more ideas and just stick them in your repertoire. And if any of them seem useful to you, go right ahead, and I hope that they will be helpful. I don't see any other questions or comments coming through the chat at this point. So I just want to say thank you again for having me. Our next and final Journeys meeting date is March 31st. We're going to be talking about nurturing friendships as we move forward. And as always, if you have any questions, you can contact me directly through the organization that I work for, info@rifn.org, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can also get in touch with the Milan Senior Center, and they will be able to answer questions and provide the slide information if you're looking for that as well. So thank you so much again for having me. I look forward to seeing you next week, and happy week.